Welcome to Hard Script.
She stood in the kitchen with her arms crossed, voice calm, too calm, and said, "I think we should take a break. Just a week. No contact. Just space." She said it like she was offering a solution. I knew better. Breaks don't fix marriages. They expose them. I didn't argue. Didn't ask why. Didn't beg. I just nodded, wiped my hands on a towel, and said, "Okay." Her face changed, like she expected resistance. A reaction. A plea. But I didn't flinch. Because somewhere between the cold dinners and colder silences, I'd stopped seeing her as my partner and started seeing her as a stranger with access to my weaknesses. We'd been married 5 years. I gave her everything I thought a husband should. Loyalty, stability, patience. She gave me conditions. She'd changed over the last year. More distant, more distracted. Her phone became her second home. Her mood swung like pendulums. And when I asked what was wrong, she said I was imagining things. That everything was fine. It never is when someone uses the word test in a marriage. So when she packed a small overnight bag and kissed me on the cheek like I was a distant relative, I didn't stop her. She walked out of our house at 8:47 p.m. on a Thursday. By 8:48, I was already deleting our shared calendar. And by 9 o'clock, I'd started making a new one, with only my name on it. I sat on the edge of our bed that night and stared at the spot she used to sleep in. It didn't feel empty. It felt clean. That's when it hit me. This break wasn't her testing our relationship. It was her expecting I'd sit still while she explored her options. The silence wasn't punishment. It was permission. She thought I'd wait, that I'd pace the floor, stare at my phone, wonder what she was doing. But the moment she walked out, something fundamental shifted. Not out of rage, not out of revenge, out of clarity. I'd been trying to keep something alive that had been dying in her hands for months. And when she finally asked for space, she gave me the one thing I hadn't had in a long time. Freedom. She thought I'd use the week to miss her. But by the time the door closed behind her, I was already building a life she'd never be part of again. That's what she never saw coming. She thought she was in control of the break. She had no idea the break would be permanent, and I wouldn't be the one waiting. The morning after she left, I woke up at 6:30 out of habit. But the silence hit different. No sighs. No sounds of the shower. No passive-aggressive clinking of dishes. Just stillness. I sat at the edge of the bed again, not because I missed her, but because the space she left behind didn't echo the way I thought it would. I checked my phone out of instinct. Nothing. Not that I expected anything. She said, "No contact. A clean test. Time to reflect." But let's be honest. No one suggests a week apart unless they've already rehearsed what they want on the other side of it. She wanted the thrill of emotional distance without the cost of consequences. I made coffee and stood at the kitchen island, the same one where she used to scroll Instagram while I tried to talk to her. It was always, "In a minute," or "I'm listening," while her thumb moved faster than her eyes ever did toward me. I started deleting old shared accounts, streaming services, grocery apps, stuff we'd linked as a couple. One by one, I untethered myself. It felt surgical, clean, quiet, like removing stitches you didn't realize were still pulling at your skin. Then I opened the closet. Half empty. She'd taken a few outfits, like she was going on a mini vacation from her responsibilities. I pulled out a box from the back of the top shelf. Inside were old photos, receipts from road trips, anniversary cards I'd written. Never received one back. Funny how I used to think love was about effort. Turns out, effort without reciprocity is just slow self-erasure. I didn't burn the box. Didn't throw it away. I just closed it and slid it under the guest bed. Out of sight. Not because I was afraid of the memories, but because they no longer had weight. That evening, I called an old friend, Mason. We hadn't talked in over a year. She always said he was immature, too single-minded, not good for our marriage. Translation: he reminded me of who I was before I compromised myself into a shadow. Mason picked up like no time had passed. We made plans for Friday night. No excuses. No, let me check with. Just, I'll be there. That night, I grilled a steak for one. Opened a cold beer. Ate in silence with the window cracked and the city noise humming like background music to a new chapter. She thought this week would shake me. What she didn't realize is, it gave me a head start. She was trying to figure out who she was without me. I was remembering exactly who I was before her. And that man, he wasn't waiting. By 10 a.m. the next day, she cracked. I saw the message light up my phone on the kitchen counter. Just wanted to see how you're doing. 3 sentences. Neutral. Phrased like concern, but soaked in expectation. She wasn't checking in on me. She was checking if she still mattered. I didn't answer. Not out of anger, but because I didn't know her clarity she never gave me. She asked for space. She got it. She assumed I'd be pacing the floors, waiting for her signal to breathe again. Instead, I was already 10 steps ahead. I spent that Saturday cleaning the apartment, not the usual quick vacuum and clutter control. I mean deep cleaning. Baseboards, windows, the fridge. Every trace of the life we built together was either boxed, binned, or burned. I pulled down a framed picture of us in Sedona, the one she used to show off to friends like proof we were solid. She hadn't touched that frame in over a year. I didn't break it. I just turned it face down and left it on the counter. Like a closed book. The silence in the apartment started to shift. It wasn't emptiness anymore. It was focus. I took a walk that afternoon, past the bookstore where we used to go on lazy Sundays. I stepped inside for the first time alone. Bought a novel I'd been meaning to read for years. She always said it was too dark. I stayed for coffee. Sat by the window. People watched. The world kept moving. And for the first time in a long time, I moved with it, without checking to see if she approved. That evening, another text buzzed in. Are you okay? I didn't open it. Letting someone walk away is one thing. Letting them drift in and out of your life on their terms. That's a boundary I no longer respected in myself. I put my phone on silent and made dinner. I played music, not the curated playlists we built together, but my old favorites. Stuff I stopped listening to because she found it too loud or too intense. It felt like reclaiming small pieces of myself one track at a time. I could feel the balance shifting, and I knew she could feel it too. Because when someone's used to controlling the rhythm of your attention, silence hits them louder than confrontation ever could. She said no contact. I agreed. She just didn't think I'd actually honor it. But that's the thing about people who play games. They never expect you to stop playing. And when you do, it terrifies them. By Sunday morning, she dropped the act. The first call came at 9:17 a.m. I watched it ring from the kitchen, the screen lighting up like a warning flare. Declined. Second call, 9:32. Third, 9:58. Back-to-back attempts to break the silence she insisted on. It was ironic. She set the rule. I just finally decided to follow it better than she ever expected. But let's be clear, I wasn't playing hard to get. I was done being reachable. I took a drive out of the city that afternoon. No destination, just distance. Rolled the windows down. Let the wind carry the weight of years I'd spent trying to fix something that wasn't mine to fix. Midway through the drive, I passed a diner I used to visit during college. Nothing special, gritty booths, burned coffee, quiet staff. But it felt honest. I parked and went in. Same cracked leather seats. Same dusty jukebox. Same smell of bacon grease and independence. I ordered a black coffee and an omelet. No one to tell me it was too much cholesterol. No one picking at my plate with a fork like it was hers too. Halfway through the meal, I heard someone say my name. Evan. I turned. It was Claire. We dated back in college. Nothing messy, nothing dramatic. Just drifted apart when life pulled us in different directions. She smiled like she wasn't surprised to see me, even though I knew this was pure accident. We talked for a while. Easy conversation. No pressure, no expectations. Just two people who knew each other once, recognizing something familiar in the present. She told me she moved back recently. Divorced. No kids. Just rebuilding. There was no flirtation. No tension. Just peace. And I realized how rare that feeling had become for me. We exchanged numbers, not with promises, just possibility. It felt clean, like a door slowly opening, instead of one slamming shut. I drove back home with a calm I hadn't felt in years. Meanwhile, my phone showed 4 missed calls and a voicemail I didn't bother to open. I didn't need to hear her voice, because I already knew what it would say. Confusion, regret, justifications. She thought distance would create longing. It only created perspective. She imagined a version of me that would chase her. But that version of me, he didn't survive the weekend. And the one who took his place? He didn't answer calls from the past. Monday evening, I got a text. I'm coming home. Not can we talk? Not are you okay? Just a statement, like she was reclaiming a space that never stopped being hers. But I wasn't home. I was at the gym. Not our overpriced boutique one that she insisted on. Just an old-school iron-and-sweat place near the river. The kind of gym where nobody films their sets. Where the mirrors are cracked and no one's performing. It was the third day in a row I'd shown up. The owner, Rick, nodded at me when I walked in like he already knew I wasn't there for a temporary fix. I'd spent too long shrinking into someone else's routine. It felt good to sweat for something that had nothing to do with proving my worth to anyone else. When I finally got back to the apartment, her car was already in the driveway. She broke her own rule. The no-contact, 7-day reflection test didn't even last 4 days. I took the stairs instead of the elevator. Slower, quieter. When I walked in, she was sitting on the couch like nothing happened. Her coat still on, her phone on the table, and that look, like she expected me to ask her how she'd been. Instead, I just walked past her, hung up my jacket, went to the kitchen, poured a glass of water. The silence wasn't awkward. It was absolute. She finally broke it with a question she never used to ask. Where were you? Not I missed you. Not can we talk? Just a question she thought had weight. I didn't answer right away. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I no longer felt the need to explain myself. That was the shift. It wasn't that I wanted revenge. It's that I no longer needed her to understand me. I told her I had plans. She asked, with who? I didn't answer. She blinked like she was realizing something. Something deep and unfamiliar. This wasn't the man she thought she could pull back into orbit with a look, a tone, or a half-hearted apology. This was someone she hadn't met yet, and she didn't know how to reach him. I went into the bedroom, shut the door behind me. No drama, no words. She thought I'd spend the week unraveling without her. But when she walked through that door early, what she found wasn't a man on pause. It was a man already living in a version of life she no longer belonged to. And that scared her more than any argument ever could. The next morning, she was already in the kitchen when I came downstairs. The smell of pancakes filled the air. Bacon on the stove. Coffee brewing. It wasn't random. She hadn't cooked like this in months. Breakfast used to be our ritual, back when mornings meant connection instead of silence. She turned, spatula in hand, and said, I thought we could eat together. Like old times. I nodded, sat down, watched her plate the food with extra care, like she was trying to season the moment with effort itself. She slid the plate across to me, waited for my reaction. I ate in silence. The food was good, but food can't cover cracks. Food doesn't rebuild trust. Food doesn't erase the way someone once treated love like a switch they could flick off and on depending on their mood. She started talking, not small talk, not about work or friends, about us. She said, I think I lost sight of what mattered. I thought pushing you away would make you fight harder for me, but it just broke something. Her voice trembled. For once, it wasn't a performance. She wasn't trying to sound strong. She sounded scared. I kept eating, not because I wanted to punish her, but because I had nothing left to add. The silence made her nervous. She kept filling it with words. Promises. Admissions. Finally, she said, I don't want this to end. That's when I looked at her. Not with anger. Not with love. Just with the kind of calm that doesn't bend. And I said, you ended at the moment you made love conditional. Her face went pale. She whispered, I didn't mean it. But meaning doesn't matter when actions already told the story. I finished breakfast, rinsed my plate, set it in the rack. She stood there frozen, holding her coffee cup like it was the only thing keeping her hands steady. I walked past her, grabbed my gym bag, opened the door. She asked, where are you going? Out, I said. That was all. No explanations. No reassurance. Because explanations are for people still trying to negotiate their worth. And I wasn't negotiating anymore. I closed the door behind me and let the silence swallow the kitchen whole. She thought pancakes and confessions would rewind the clock. But clocks only move one way. And I wasn't interested in turning back. By Wednesday, it wasn't just her voice filling the apartment. It was everyone else's. First came the long text from her best friend, written like a closing argument. I was withdrawing to punish, stonewalling, forgetting vows. She said every marriage hit dry seasons, and that strong men fight for their wives. Strong men don't perform for an audience. They act without applause. I didn't reply. Then her mother called, warm at first, then worried, then quietly accusatory. She said her daughter was trying and asked whether I could meet her halfway. I listened. I said I appreciated the call. I didn't offer reassurance I couldn't back with truth. By afternoon, my sister forwarded a screenshot, a vague post on social media about learning who people really are when times get tough. No names. All implication. That was the moment I stopped letting the weather report tell me if it was raining. I opened my laptop and did what men like me do when we're done explaining. We organize. I exported our shared finances to a clean spreadsheet. Lines, dates, categories. Household costs I'd carried alone for months. The canceled trips I tried to plan. The therapy link I'd sent, and she forgot to open. I didn't build a case. I built clarity, mostly for me. I emailed myself backups, photos of the guest room where I'd been sleeping, the calendar entries of all the nights she worked late, the receipt for the gym I joined after the week apart began. Not ammunition. Records. So that when emotions flared, the facts stayed put. Then I made 3 appointments. A storage unit, a mover, and a lawyer. No grand declarations. Just time slots and a calendar with my name on it. I drafted one message to her. Not a manifesto. Not a plea. For sentences. I'm stepping out of the marriage we've been pretending to have. I won't participate in group discussions about us. The lease ends in 60 days. I'll be gone in 30. If you want to talk logistics, email. I didn't hit send yet. I wasn't hiding. I was timing. Silence works best when paired with precision. That evening she came home measured, eyes glossy from the chorus singing in her corner. She spoke slowly, like reciting a script about reconnection, accountability, building back better. She mentioned her friend's advice, her mother's prayer, a podcast clip. I watched her mouth form all the right words and felt nothing move inside me. She asked why I wouldn't meet her where she was. Because where she was had always shifted depending on who was watching. I told her I wasn't angry. She looked startled, almost offended. Anger would have been easier. Anger can be negotiated. My calm couldn't. I walked to the guest room, closed the door, and set a reminder for the movers, Saturday, 9 a.m. She wanted a week to test our marriage. By day 5, I'd stopped being a participant in the experiment. I wasn't counter-arguing. I wasn't defending. I wasn't posting. I was leaving, quietly, completely, and on schedule. I woke at 4:32 a.m. to the sound of my own decision. No alarm. No second thoughts. Just a clean pulse in my chest that said, go. The movers were scheduled for 9. She didn't know. What she also didn't know, her friend had texted my sister the night before about a surprise intervention. A couples counselor coming by at 10, her mother at 11, a staged redemption arc with witnesses. I wasn't going to be there for the performance. I showered, dressed, and moved through the house like a man visiting a museum built to his old self. The frames, the rug, the table where I'd apologized more times than I could count. All of it looked curated for a story I no longer belonged in. At 5:10, the truck backed into the alley. 2 guys, efficient, quiet, professional. I handed them a printed inventory. Boxes already staged in the garage, the chair in the office, my books, my tools. Nothing shared. Nothing spiteful. Precision only. They worked in silence. I matched it. By 6:40, my side of the closet was a rectangle of empty air. The guest room was bare. The office shelves blinked like they'd just woken up. I left the rest. The couch she picked without asking, the decor that matched a life I kept adjusting myself to fit into. She could have the set. I was taking the script. At the kitchen island, I placed a sealed folder. For pages. Page 1. A simple letter, no poetry, no blame. I'm stepping out of the marriage we pretended was functioning. No group discussions. If you want to coordinate logistics, email. Page 2. My move-out date stamped today. New address for mail forwarding. Utilities transferred to her name with the effective date highlighted. Page 3. A clean expense ledger. What I'd carried, what I'd closed, what remained. Clear. Unemotional. Page 4. A list of items I did not take, with photos. Not for approval. For record. Keys on top. Ring beside them. At 7:15, I sent 2 emails. One to my lawyer with a subject line that didn't need flourish. File. The other to her, scheduled to land at 9:05, right after the mover's final sweep. Documents on the counter. I won't be there at 10. No threats. No warnings. Just completion. I took one last walk through the rooms. Not to feel anything, but to confirm I didn't. The air felt honest. Outside, the street yawned awake. I loaded the last box into my trunk, the one with my father's photo and 3 books I refused to outgrow again, and pulled away without checking mirrors. At 9:02, my phone buzzed. The movers all set. At 9:17, another buzz, her missed call. Then a second, then a third. I drove in silence and let them stack like unopened mail. I could picture it without trying. Her standing in the doorway with a counselor she'd found in a rush and a speech she'd practiced in the car, staring into rooms that no longer argued back. The folder on the counter. The key. The ring. The absence. Her intervention had an audience of 1. And he'd already left before the first line. By noon the day I moved out, the chorus began. A mutual friend texted a paragraph about abandonment. Another sent a screenshot of a post that read like a riddle. Sometimes people leave when love asks them to stay. No names. All arrows. I didn't reply. I archived. Silence isn't surrender when you're organized. My lawyer filed the petition before lunch. No mud. No drama. Just dates, signatures, and a quiet request for a clean split. The email came back stamped and time-stamped. My favorite kind of closure. I spent the afternoon building a life that didn't wobble. Assembled a bed frame that wouldn't squeak under the weight of second chances. Stocked a fridge with food I actually eat. Lined 3 books on the window ledge. My father's biography, a dog-eared novel from college, and a blank journal. At dusk, I ran the river path until the city lights stopped looking like signals and started looking like scenery. The next morning, she escalated. A long message arrived, dressed as clarity. It accused me of quitting instead of fighting, of performing coldness, of using silence as punishment. She copied her mother and her friend, a tiny audience for a familiar play. I answered with 4 sentences and 1 attachment. I won't debate feelings in a group chat. Attached are the documents on the counter from yesterday, utilities, dates, ledger. I've asked for a straightforward dissolution. All coordination can go to my attorney's email below. No adjectives. No history lesson. Just coordinates. By evening, the narrative started to bend. My sister forwarded a new screenshot. Her vague post was gone. Another friend reached out, softer this time, asking if I was okay. I said I was good. Because I was. 2 days later, service was completed. Courthouse beige in the inbox, neutral and final. The process had a pulse now, and it beat to a rhythm I could respect. She tried one last maneuver, showed up at my building, early evening, the lobby air smelling like rain and perfume. The front desk called to say a woman wanted to come up for 5 minutes. I said I wasn't receiving visitors and asked the concierge to hand her a sealed envelope. Inside, a single page with 3 lines. I won't meet privately while attorneys are engaged. I won't be discussing emotions by proxy. I hope you build something honest, from here, apart. No cruelty. No counterattack. Just the boundaries she taught me by violating mine. I made dinner, salmon, rice, greens. Ate standing at the counter, the kind of simple meal you don't overthink. The phone stayed face down. Later, I stepped onto the balcony. The city breathed. Somewhere below, tires hissed on wet asphalt like a long exhale. She wanted a week to test our marriage. By day 7, the test had results. Not red ink. Not blame. Just a box checked next to a truth I should have accepted months ago. If love needs an audience to prove it exists, it's already over. The email landed at 9:06 a.m. on a Thursday. Subject line simple. Final judgment entered. No courtroom scene. No speeches. Just a PDF that closed a story we had kept on life support too long. I was at the river when it came through, shoes off, morning air cutting clean across the water. The city was just waking up. I already felt awake. I glanced at the screen, saved the file, and put the phone face down. Paperwork didn't change anything. It just made the truth official. By noon, a mutual friend texted that she wanted one last talk. Not to argue, the friend said. To honor the history. In the past, that phrasing would have hooked me. Nostalgia as a net. Not anymore. I sent back one line. Logistics by email only. That evening, the front desk called. She was in the lobby with a manila envelope and the expression people wear when they realize the performance is over. I came down, Not to reopen anything, just to end it politely. We stood by the glass doors as traffic hummed past like a white noise machine for endings. She handed me the envelope the way someone gives back something borrowed. Inside were 2 concert stubs, our Sedona photo, and the house key I hadn't asked for. She said she had written a letter. Not an appeal, she added, a confession. She said she finally understood what my silence meant. Not punishment, decision. I nodded. I didn't take the letter. I told her she could keep it, read it to the version of me who might have stayed. She went still at that. No anger, just a recognition that some words arrive after they've expired. She asked if there was truly nothing left to say. I told her there was plenty to say, just not to each other. She looked past me toward the elevators, like a person glimpsing a life she would never step into. Then she said she hoped I would find someone who didn't confuse attention with love. I said I hoped she would, too. We stood there a few seconds longer. No tears. No handshakes. No ritual. When she turned to leave, the door eased shut behind her with the soft click of a choice already made. I took a walk. Bought groceries. Cooked dinner. Watered the plants. It wasn't triumph. It was rhythm. Later, I texted Mason about a hiking trip and sent Claire a photo of the bookstore she'd mentioned. No invitation attached, just the light through the window at 5 p.m. The kind of warm that doesn't ask permission. Before bed, I opened the decree again. Names. Dates. A line that ended us with a period instead of an exclamation point. She wanted to test our marriage with a week apart. By day 1, she learned I wasn't waiting. By day 7, the experiment ended. And today, with the only signature that ever mattered, I kept the promise my silence made. I didn't disappear. I just stopped being there. Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories.